Hi friend, Nathan here, and today we're talking about a little technique that I use to spice up the melodies in my guitar arrangements. It's called Campanella, and I talked about it a little bit in my 7 different ways to play the same melody video, but it's such a cool technique, and because I would love to help you be able to use it in your own arrangements, I felt like it deserved a video of its own. Campanella means little bell, and it's very aptly named because the technique produces this reverberating wash of sound as the notes blend together like a choir of little bells. Now, before we dive into the specifics of this technique, if you want to support the channel with just the click of a button and feed the YouTube algorithm beast, if you could just scroll down real quick, hit the like button, and I would love for you to leave me a comment letting me know what's one of your favorite techniques, or more generally maybe, just what's one thing that you really love about the guitar. The Campanella technique is produced when you take a melodic or scale-like passage and you refinger it in a way that allows the notes to ring out against each other by playing only one note per string. So, for example, I would normally play a D major scale like this. That's a very standard fingering and a traditional linear and melodic sound where you're only hearing one note at a time. But let's take that same scale and play it with a Campanella fingering and listen to what happens. To me, that difference is insane because you're hearing these notes blending together now. It almost sounds like you have this built-in reverb in your guitar. In fact, it almost sounds more like a harp than a guitar. So let's listen to that difference back to back now. Normal. Campanella. That actually makes a plain old D major scale sound kind of cool, which is saying a lot because normally it's just boring. But what am I actually doing here? First of all, like I touched on before, I'm changing where I'm playing the notes of the scale so that I can play each note on a different string, like an arpeggio. So if you're not familiar with the guitar's fretboard and how the layout works, we have multiple locations where we can play the same note across the neck. So that's what we're capitalizing on here. So I start with a D on the 3rd fret here with my first finger, then play the C sharp here on the 6th fret of the G string instead of where I would normally play it in the scale on the same string as the first D on the 2nd fret here. So now these two notes can ring out together. Then I'll release the D and play the next note of the scale B open so that the C sharp and B can still both ring. You'll find that open strings play a really big role in Campanella fingerings. So moving on, I'll play the A at the 7th fret of the D string here with my 4th finger, G open, F sharp on the 4th fret of the D string, E at the 7th fret of the A string, and finally D open. So with this fingering, you can always have at least 2 notes ringing simultaneously at all times, creating that blended Campanella effect. So you can probably tell from this that to come up with your own Campanella fingerings for your guitar arrangements, you have to have a level of familiarity with the guitar's fretboard so that you can find all those different locations for the same note across the neck. So to help you with this, I have a free training on my website called Fretboard Freedom, where I teach you how to find and play chords anywhere on the fretboard. Now this training is meant to help you get started with making your own guitar arrangements, but as a result of what you learn in the course, it also makes you much more comfortable exploring the fretboard, which applies directly to what we're doing here. And I even include a downloadable fretboard chart that you can use to help visualize and memorize the fretboard as well. So go to beyondtheguitar.com or follow the link down below in the description to check that out. Now, other than adjusting the fingering of a passage, there are 2 things that you need to make sure you're doing physically to create the Campanella technique. Number 1, make sure that you aren't lifting any of your left-hand fingers off of the strings until you absolutely have to. You want to keep the notes fretted as long as possible so that the notes can continue ringing out against each other. Number 2, you want to be very careful about the arch of your finger. So you should make sure that your fingertip is essentially at a 90-degree angle with the fretboard so that it doesn't accidentally start to lean back or flatten out and mute an adjacent string that's supposed to be ringing out. Let's look at an example of Campanella being used in real music. So I composed this short little Campanella study that you heard at the beginning of this video that has you playing a melody entirely with the Campanella technique. Here it is again. You can download the tabs and sheet music for this for free at my website, again, linked below, for your own practice and study of this technique. Now, not to sound like a broken record, but I love this sound. And if I haven't convinced you yet, let's do a back-to-back comparison, measure by measure, playing this tune, Campanella, versus a more traditional fingering. As cool as this sounds, I rarely play an entire melody like this. Now there's a time and a place for that, but at the end of the day, you have to remember that this is an effect. And just like with any effect, if it's overdone, it loses its impact and everything that makes it unique. So I more often use Campanella in more subtle ways, like just between two melody notes. If I like the way that those two notes sound blended together. Like at the beginning of this study, I love that subtle dissonance of that half step ringing out between that C and that B. So I might just use the Campanella technique just between those two notes to highlight that. Or I often use it at the end of phrases, like here. There's something about ending a phrase with that Campanella sound that produces this really atmospheric, almost melancholy quality. This whole blending of notes, though, is why I call this a weird melodic technique, because technically it's breaking the rules of melody. Melody by nature is meant to be linear, a sequence of notes one after the other, and so by allowing those notes to overlap, we're blurring the lines between melody and harmony. Now, while it's important to know and understand this, some of the most meaningful music is created by blurring and bending and breaking those rules in creative ways. So I want you to put this into your toolkit and to explore Campanella as an option for your arrangement's melodies. And when you're looking for these alternative Campanella fingerings, there are two things you want to remember. Number one, look for where you can play that next melody note on an adjacent string. So if it has another location within reach and you can hold both of those melody notes down at the same time, you're good to go. Number two, look for open strings. For Campanella sequences longer than two notes, this is most often going to be a necessity. So ask yourself, can you play any of those melody notes on open strings? This gives you an easy opportunity to let multiple notes ring out together, and it gives your left hand an opening to be able to shift and continue that Campanella sequence down the fretboard. I hope this inspires you to get creative with your arrangements and to experiment with your melodies. And let me know, are you a fan of this Campanella sound, and do you plan on using it in your arrangements? I'd love to hear from you. So again, leave me a comment below letting me know. And if you're kind of new to this whole concept of making guitar arrangements and you don't really know where to get started, again, go to my website, beyondtheguitar.com, or follow the link down below to take my free training, Fretboard Freedom. It's a great place to get started. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button to let me know and to help more people see it. Make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on so you never miss future videos. And as always, much love, and I'll see you in the next one.